Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show, the show where we talk about anything and everything, where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
All right. Hey, folks, this is Joe Rooz. It is 19:03 hours on August the 22nd, 2025. And as always, we are coming to you live from the Pimple on the backside of Texas, the beautiful city of Eagle Pass, and doing the very best we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we could muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. All right. Hey, intro music tonight by the Angelics. I want to say thank you so much, guys, for allowing us to use the track. Really appreciate it. All righty. Folks, hope you guys had a enjoyable Thursday, at least. Don't let the voice fool you. I'm feeling a lot better. Definitely feeling a lot better here. So looking forward to it. Had my final COVID test today, and praise the Lord, it's negative, and that means I get to go back to work on Monday. So we're excited about that, getting a little bit of cabin fever here. You should have seen some of the pictures I was sending people today. Head wrapped in towels and all kinds of stupid stuff. And then, of course, I get to mess around in the studio and then change things around. As you can probably tell, you know, the camera's a little different, color texture's a little different, everything's a little different. But hey, that's all right. You know, it keeps me busy. Tries to help me. It helps me think when I do these things. And to give you an update as well, we've been playing around with some streaming software. So we've been playing around with OBS. We've been playing around with Meld. Really getting some progress with Meld. So we'll be doing a show with that in the next couple of days, and we'll let you know how that all works out. So thanks to the folks that made that recommendation. It's really working out pretty well. Very simple to use, actually. Where, you know, with OBS is a great platform. Don't get me wrong, but OBS is like, you got 6 or 7 clicks just to do one thing that you do in 2 clicks, maybe 3 with Meld. So it's a little bit faster. I think it's a little bit easier to use if you're just a one-man operation like we are here. But enough of that stuff. I digress. We do have 2 guests with us tonight. Really looking forward to getting into these conversations tonight. And but of course, before we do that, we do have some just small housekeeping stuff that we need to do as usual. So if you would, just head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. When you get up there, just make sure you look for that contact section. Open up the web form. Let us know whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, concerns that you might have, any ideas or suggestions that you might have for guests or topics that you'd like to discuss. We always want to hear from you and get your assessment on things, see what direction you guys want to go. Also, if you don't want to use the web form, totally fine by me. You can always email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. Also, don't forget to head over to our support page. Why? Because this is a value for value show, and if you receive anything of value from what we're putting out here, all we're asking is that you return that value in the form of a donation. It could be your time, your talent, your treasure. It could be all 3. It could be 1 of the 3. It could be 2 of the 3. It doesn't matter. We prefer all 3, if possible. If you have the means to do it, that'd be great. We appreciate that. So just head over to the website on the support page, and we'll get into more details about that in just a little bit. All right, folks. So I want to tell you about our sponsor, Ezra Healing. Now, on Tuesday, we had our show with the CEO of Ezra Healing, and I hope you guys found that to be interesting. It's kind of different for me, considering we talk about menopause. I don't have to necessarily deal with that problem, but some of you guys do, and that's fine. That's okay. We forgive you for it, for making me have to talk about it. But we did. It's a good show. I thought it was a good show, so I hope you guys were able to check that out. But our CEO of the CEO of Ezra Healing is our sponsor. So we want to tell you about what they're doing there. So Ezra Healing is a substantial part of the new wellness paradigm currently being born in North America and around the globe. The global citizenry are no longer satisfied with the sick care version of so-called healthcare, Band-Aid medicine, endlessly treating symptoms rather than the root causes must be abandoned as soon as possible. Patient-centric care has to be the priority. Would be nice if this thing worked, right? My little screen here, it's giving me fussy. We need to transition towards the do no harm model of private care that places humanity at the forefront of real healthcare and real wellness care. In this new model, your entire lifestyle is examined, analyzed to promote and support the totality of your body's integrated systems. Ezra Healing is a solutions-based health promotion and disease prevention grassroots movement that is always evolving to best serve you and your family. Now, if you want more information about Ezra Healing, there's the link right there on the website, EzraHealing.com. That's EzraHealing.com. So make sure you check it out. All right. Now, if you've been following along, you know that this is pretty much the time and point where we cut through all the noise, we dig into what's really shaping our lives, what's really shaping our culture, and what's really shaping our future. Now, my guest tonight is someone who has lived the grind, built a business with his bare hands, and walked through the fire to discover what really makes men tick. He's not a product of coaching mills or polished seminars. He's a systems thinker, a coach, and a voice who isn't afraid to expose the patterns behind the chaos. Jake Giffin is the creator of the DSIX framework, a transformation system rooted in scripture and modern psychology that helps men reprogram their minds, reclaim their leadership, and scale business without losing their soul. He's the founder of the Hero Alliance, host of the Jake Giffin podcast, and a man whose mission is to help leaders and families break free from cultural programming and align their lives with God's design. Tonight, we're going to deep dive into identity, culture, politics, and purpose. This isn't motivational fluff. This is about rewiring how you think and how you live. Jake, welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. It's great to have you here, my friend.
That is a crazy introduction, my brother. Wow.
Like that, huh?
With my bare hands, even. I like the explanation of the menopause. I mean, I know you have women that watch your show, so it's I know that you're really dealing with menopause. My wife currently is in perimenopause, so that's fun. But for you guys out there that are dealing with, hopefully you're not dealing. Are they dealing with menopause? Is that a thing?
Actually, it's men go through andropause. That I've learned. So
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it was kind of new to me too, but yes, men go through andropause, and so I guess that's our excuse when we want to get moody and we want to get cranky and we want to just kind of blow everybody off like the ladies do when they get their symptoms of their menopause.
Ezra Health teaching us all kinds of new stuff. That's cool.
Hey, honestly though, they're a great bunch of people. I've had some really good interactions with the staff up there. They're fantastic. They really know their stuff, and their CEO Svetlana Rilkov. I don't know if you heard the show or anything, but she's a former nurse up in British Columbia. She was fired because she refused the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine and or gene therapy, like I call it. So she was fired for that, and then through a series of other issues, she stepped out and she created this company called Ezra Healing, and she's doing very well with it, and she's helping a lot of people. So we were really blessed. I hosted her on a show one day. We just kind of really hit it off well, and we talked about sponsoring, and she became one of our sponsors, and we appreciate that very much.
That's very nice. Preventative medicine, man. That's the future, right? I mean, and as soon as quantum computing becomes viable in the next maybe 10 years or however long it's going to take, quantum computing is going to identify customized gene medicine like within seconds. So everything's going to be custom by the time that breaks out. So that's good. She's on the cutting edge, man. Good for her.
Oh yeah, sure. And the whole do no harm model of medicine really is important too. Treating the patient rather than the symptoms, and getting to the root cause of the problem rather than just dealing with the surface problems. It's a great program that she runs there, and I think she's doing really good work.
Isn't it interesting though that modern medicine today is sworn to do no harm, and yet they have no clue as to what they're doing in regards to actual remedies or actual prevention for sicknesses or diseases or anything else. It's like they've sworn to do no harm, but then they have, a book full of things that keep them from being sued, indemnifying them from any kind of damage. It's like, well, if you're sworn to do no harm, stand behind it. But
yeah, exactly.
I can go off on I spent a lot of time last year in the hospital. I was 4 surgeries last year, so I kind of know a little bit. So I can get on a soapbox and start.
Well, we could
modern medicine.
Broach that subject in a little bit if you like. Usually, I like to ask like a first question. Maybe you want to get into it with the first question. It's tell us something most people don't know about you but should know about you.
What they should know about it. Most people don't know I'm really good at ping pong. But
really,
yeah, oh yeah. Well, I had the fortunate. Back in the days, probably 20 something years ago now, I ended up doing federal time for something I didn't do. And I was in there, I was inside for, 2.5 years. It was minimum security. It wasn't a big deal, but me and a buddy found the ping pong table, started running drills, and I got really good at ping pong. So
nice. Well,
thanks, federal prison system.
I was listening to one of your podcasts. Actually, I was watching it on YouTube, and you had mentioned it. You were talking to another gentleman who also had spent some time in jail, in prison, and so I was listening to that. I was really fascinated, by the stories that you were sharing with him, and I was actually going to ask you about those things a little bit later on, but we can get into that, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, whenever, I mean, so what people should know about me, I don't know what they should know about me. They don't know that I'm good at ping pong. I'm probably a little rusty now. So, but within a week on a table, I'd probably be able to compete with anybody that's at least a little less than professional.
Okay.
So
I
that's
used to
good.
play racquetball, which is not exactly the same thing as ping pong,
Mhm.
unless you want to count yourself as being a ping pong ball bouncing off the
Mhm.
four walls in racquetball. But racquetball, I loved racquetball. Racquetball was always a lot
Yeah.
of fun for me. So, and I've tried my hand at ping pong. I'm not going to say I was good at it. I had my moments, but I can't say that I was consistently good at it. I was
It,
definitely better at
it,
the racquetball.
it is like anything else, whether you're doing a racket sport or handball or any kind of sport, anything that takes not even hand-eye coordination, anything that is developing habits requires repetition. And
Right.
so, and if you're disciplined enough up front to run your drills and to think about running, not just playing ping pong, right? It's not just about, well, let's get on a table and play, and then in 20 years we'll be really good. It's about, in this particular case, it was, can I backhand straight down the line? Can I go cross court? Can I forehand? And we did a lot of those types of drills so many times that we were, you get to a point where you can call your shots. It
Yeah.
becomes automatic. A lot of why we make decisions the way that we do as human beings is because we've trained our flesh, we've trained ourselves to make those types of decisions over and over again. Ping pong's no different.
Yeah. So what's your go-to beverage to help you unwind at the end of the day?
I drink milk, dude. I like milk. Um, yeah,
That's the first.
I
Nope.
used
Out of
I
everybody I've
used
asked
to
that question to, nobody said milk ever. That's
yeah
a
I like
first.
yeah I like milk. I drink milk pretty much every night. That's my It's like habitual. If I start running out of milk, I kind of panic for some reason. I'm not sure why. Um, I used to enjoy it, especially in the summertime. When it gets really hot, like it is today, I used to really enjoy like a Heineken or a beer.
Mhm.
Um, but the hospital last year murdered one of my kidneys, and so I'm trying to preserve the one I have left
I gotcha.
uh, by not drinking. So
I gotcha. I gotcha. Well, milk
yeah,
does do a body good. That's at least what they tell us.
it
And
does. Yep.
and I know what you mean about milk. Running low on milk. I don't know if it's because of my grandmother. Grandmother went through the Depression era and all that stuff. But as soon as I'm down to like a half a gallon of milk, I'm
Mhm.
panicking that I got to get to the store and get some more. And I have to have at least 2 gallons of milk in the fridge at all times.
Oh yeah. How old are you?
I am 54.
Yeah. So here's interesting. Because I'm 52. I just turned 52 a couple of days ago, and we're of the same era, and we're suffering the same panic or
Yeah.
discomfort when we're running out of milk. And I think it coincides with that brilliant milk campaign they did 30 years ago.
Right, yes.
Got milk, right?
Got
And
milk, that's right, yes.
you got their
I forgot
panic.
about that.
There's a panic, and that's there,
Yeah,
man.
I forgot about that. I the Got Milk campaigns, yes.
They
Like, I
got us.
I remember the face on the milk carton. I remember the milk, it does your body good, but I didn't remember that one. That's good. That's a
Yeah, dude.
very
There's that one, the one where the guy had just eaten a big piece of chocolate cake and then he was on the radio show. He was going to win a bunch of cash or something, but he
I
had
think
a
I
face
remember
full of
that one.
cake and he couldn't wash it down. He didn't have any milk. He lost out on a bunch of cash. So I think that goes through my mind every time my milk gets low.
That's good.
I don't know who's going to call me and tell me, "Hey man, if you can answer this stupid question, I got $1 million for you." I mean, now I'm programmed,
That's
you
great.
know.
And so I was looking over your information on Podmatch, and it says that you built your first business in pest control,
Mm-hmm.
which really, honestly, an industry a lot of people overlook. They shouldn't, because it's an important part. It's an important
Yeah.
industry. What did those years teach you about your leadership and resilience and faith?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still building it. I mean, it's still ongoing. And so what it taught me, what it's teaching me about resilience and faith, teaching me about resilience is that there's a lot of suffering any business that you're going to start. There's you go into it, most of the time you go into it with these rose-colored glasses. You see
Yeah.
some of these guys that you worked for, and I've worked for a lot of smart people. I've also worked for a lot of dumb people. And so you see the dumb people doing pretty well, and you think, well, I could do that at least half as, I could probably do it at least half as well as they're doing it. And so you start your own business thinking, well, I'm going to be, I'll be fine. And then you start learning all the stuff you didn't know before you got into it. And those things tend to be expensive surprises, honestly. And
Yeah.
so when I started this in 2016, Halo Home Services in 2016, it was rodent exclusions, doing rodent exclusions in a way. It's hard to innovate in this industry because it's been around for so long. The nice thing is that most of it is aging, and so most of the guys that are in it are doing it like their grandfathers did it.
Right.
So they're still like setting traps and kind of doing that in order to get the recurring services, right? So if I stop by your house every month and check traps for $60, then that's a service. But if I seal up all the openings and keep the rats from getting into your house, well, that's a remedy. And while that remedy costs more than the trapping initially, long term, it's much cheaper. It's important for the homeowner, right? So in our model, we stick with if it's aesthetically pleasing and it's functional. So whatever we do can't distract from the look of the house.
Okay.
So a lot of people put up haphazard screens or ugly foams or whatever. The problem with what we do is it's so good that there's no reoccurring revenue. So one of the things that you learn in business is why chiropractors never fix you, why doctors never fix you, why pharmaceutical companies don't want to fix you. It's because as soon as you're fixed, your source of revenue dries up.
Right.
And so
it's interesting that you said that, because that's exactly what we were talking about with the do no harm model.
Mm-hmm.
It's a point that I bring up regularly, especially with the doctors. It's like you go to the doctor because you have high blood pressure. They put you on a medication, which really you shouldn't have to be on forever. I mean, it should be just a stopgap to help you get to a healthier lifestyle, so you don't need the medication. But yet that medication has side effects that require another medication, and that medication has side effects that require another medication. And it's just a constant cycle. And of course, the pharmaceutical companies are the first ones there with the solution to your problem, which is another medication. And it's just a vicious cycle. And it's just exactly like what you said. That revenue stream that they depend on, that they count on, and that they want to keep flowing in, because if you're healthy,
and it's almost more nefarious than that, because in my industry, in the pest control industry, we get a lot of our chemicals, from places like Dow.
Right.
Dow, I think, is the same company that makes ibuprofen. And so from beginning to end, you have chemical companies that are creating these things that on one side are doing a great service, right? Like if you get rid of the fleas that are feeding on the rats, then you mitigate disease. That's important, right? It's an important role your pest control company is doing if they're doing it responsibly. It's important, but at the same time, those chemicals get into, if they're not used properly, or even when they're used properly, sometimes they'll get into the water source, or sometimes they'll get into the air. Sometimes they'll affect the house around them. Then that causes some kind of physiological response.
Right.
That then the same company that made the chemical sells you the pharmaceutical that will try to keep that physiological response at bay without actually fixing it. Yeah. So I say it's nefarious. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but it's at very least, it's kind of a sub-consequence of having good pest control and good chemicals on one hand. You end up getting sick or contaminating the world on the other. You got to be careful, but
yeah. Oh, for sure. But I don't know. See, I've become so jaded ever since 2020. That I don't trust them at all. And I think that everything they do at least at the ground level, is with intent to do harm, and it's
Yeah,
to keep
I
you.
feel that.
So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Call me a conspiracy theorist if you like. I don't mind. It's okay.
Well, I'm with you on it. I'm with you on it. And since 2020, and even before then, I was kind of a big advocate for what's considered integrated pest management, which is habitat modification, changes in the environment, removal of food sources or moisture, things like that, in order to
Right.
mitigate the pests. But and we even do a lot of that now. That's kind of what we specialize in, and we've moved towards more readily over the last several years to natural remedies or non-hazardous chemicals. There's some instances where you just get an outbreak of ants and you just want to eliminate the entire colony on the property. Well, you break out the big guns for that. So, but we try to use some of the more natural stuff, like probably what Ezra Health is doing with preventative medicine. We're trying to go through houses and seal up the openings and make sure ants and roaches and things can't get in, and then deal with the situations in the yard to make sure that they don't, they'll find a better house next door, with an unkept yard. So
Yeah.
we're doing our best not to use as many chemicals and get people sick as possible.
Yeah, I work in a nursing facility at my regular job, and
Mhm.
we have pest control services on a monthly basis, so on and so
Mhm.
forth. And it's similar to that as well. I mean, they have to be so careful about what they're putting down, and it has to be
Yep.
Specifically made to go into a nursing facility for other contraindications and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
It's a complicated business, to be honest with you. I mean, people think it's just you go out there with a can of bug spray, you spray stuff. It's
Yep.
it's really it's not an easy business to be in. I have a good friend of mine who's out here in Eagle Pass who's in pest control as his business, and I see the aggravation that he goes through at times.
It's
But
yeah, it's rough.
yeah, but Jake, so you didn't go to seminary. You didn't study under any kind of real mastermind or anything like that. You basically got to where you are today through just slugging it out, real world grit. What was the turning point where your personal struggles turned into a mission to help other men?
Yeah, more like, well, I went to Bible college, but I didn't go to seminary. Um, there's always been, even when I was a kid, I was like, am I going to be a psychologist? Maybe I'll be a psychologist. I like helping people.
Mhm.
I like the brain. It's fascinating to me. The reason people do what they do, the behaviors, all that is super fascinating. And so I've always been fascinated in that. I looked at ministry as being kind of the avenue by which to fulfill that on even a deeper level, on a spiritual level. But that never, that never materialized for one reason or another. I didn't have a high enough degree or whatever it was. And so, uh, we went 2005. The wife and I went to Palmdale to plant a church. Palmdale's high desert, Los Angeles, to plant a
Mhm.
church. Didn't quite go as well as we thought it would have gone. It's kind of like the rose-colored glasses you start businesses with, right? You're like, we're going to start a church and it's just going to be massive and it's going to be beautiful. It wasn't. It was none of those things. And so that was the longest 3 years in Palmdale of our life was, learning the disappointment of trying to start something that just never took off. And as a result of that move, I kind of derailed my ministry career. And
Mhm.
that's when I got into the termite pest control business. Well, I had been in sales for, several years before that, even before my ministry, before anything else. And so, when I got into the termite business, I got in there as a business developer, sales manager type. And so, when I started doing that, and that was it, man. It was off to the races. So everything I touched and if anybody's ever heard of orange oil as for a termite treatment, I was happily a small part of making that popular here, at least in Southern California. And so that was a wild ride. While doing that, we were making this transition, I think culturally, from this selling features and benefits, the hard closing sales, the overcoming objections, and just being kind of really hard about it, the
Right.
popped up collar and the gold chain and the, that kind of stuff. We're making the transition from that kind of sale to more of a consultative sale. And we got involved in integrating what's called transactional analysis in our sales process. Transactional analysis is a form of psychology developed by Eric Berne in the 60s and 70s. It's phenomenal. I could teach you all about it if you want. But so we're integrating sales with transactional analysis, and it was working phenomenally. And we
Right.
made that into a management. There's management associated with that, and developing people in that way, and it was turning out really great. Then a buddy of mine, boss actually at that company, heard about neuro-linguistic programming. And once I got my teeth into that, I was like, this is ridiculous. It's like really about performance, about mastery. It really has depth and understanding, not just communication, but understanding how people process information, how they're executing situations in their life, and why they do negative behaviors versus positive behaviors and vice versa. And so when I started studying that, I was like, this is great. And then I started building sales teams on top of that, right? And coaching salespeople while building other termite companies since 2005 till 2016 or whatever. And so everything I was fixing with salespeople was based on what I learned in transactional analysis and NLP. And then it was probably maybe 5 years ago when I was looking at all these forms of psychology and just kind of reading through a lot of things, and that it dawned on me that a lot of these people they don't agree, right? Like if you took 50 psychologists and you put them in a room and you said, hey, how do we fix this problem? They'd have 50 different ideas of how to fix the problem. Yeah. And so that got me thinking, well, what if the neurolinguistic programming, what if the transactional analysis, what if all these things what if they're not true? And how would I know if they're true or not? And so then I decided to start comparing those things with what the Bible has to say about the mind, what the Bible has to say about psychology. It doesn't use the word psychology, obviously, right, but it uses mind, thought, reason, consider. It uses mindful speak.
Right. Yep.
And I thought, why wouldn't I consult the one that invented psychology, right, as to how to balance all these out? So then I started comparing the two, or the 3 or 4 things that I was kind of analyzing at the time. And I took out, I basically said, if it doesn't contradict the Bible, I'll use it. If it's supported by the Bible, I'll definitely use it.
Right.
And that's what ends up being the D6 program, or the D6 form of coaching that I use now. And that's D6 stands for, it's the day that God made man in his image. That was the purest day, that is the purest moment that we were, the relationship we had with God before the fall.
Right.
That is the purest day. That's when we are given the mandate to dominate the animal land and subdue anything that grows, and then multiply what God has given us. And so D6 was born from basically that comparison of those systems.
Well, that's great. I just want to go back to something you said. Now, you worked on planting churches. Now, I've had the privilege of helping a young missionary when I was living in New York plant a church on Staten Island. So I know it's a very, very hard thing to do. It's not something you could just you just wake up one day and say, okay, well, I'm going to do this and it's going to be a success. Right. And it automatically is. I remember knocking door to door with this young man, trying to get people to come to church. And I'll never forget one. He was going out of town, and he made the mistake that most young preachers do, is he told his congregation he was going to be out of town. You never do that. If you're a preacher and you're listening, don't ever tell your group that you're going to be out of town because they won't come to church. All right. So he had asked me if I would preach for him for the 2 services on a Sunday for him.
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, sure. I'll do that. No problem. And I got to the church and I opened everything up and I'm sitting there and nobody showed up. So, it was the funniest thing in the world to me anyway. I laughed and I texted him and I said, hey, Dave, did you tell them you were going to be in town or no? He goes, oh no, yeah, I told them I'd be out of town for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Answer,
right.
problem solved right there. But you're right though. Planting a church is not the easiest thing in the world. You go into it with the rose-colored glasses. You go in there, you're thinking that I am going to change the world with my little church here, and it is one of the hardest things to do. I don't know if you know about me. I went to Bible school myself. I served as an associate pastor of a church up in New York for a little bit. I go to a great church down here. I've taught the Bible. I used to do a Bible study podcast on Sundays. I teach Bible on this show. So I know what you're talking about. And the Bible is an incredibly important book. And I say it repeatedly over and over and over again, that the Bible is the single greatest textbook on any subject that you need to study. If you want a textbook about politics, you study the Bible, because what's the Bible about? The Bible about who's going to run who is going to rule who's going to govern who. You want you want to know about a textbook about biology. Your Bible has your biology. You want a textbook about botany. Your Bible's a book about
agriculture.
Botany. Everything that you could possibly imagine, that you could think of, humanly speaking, is in that Bible. Now, do I profess to know exactly where it all is? No, I can't. I wouldn't be able to tell you that, but I know it's there.
Yeah.
And if I look for it, I'll find it. So
it won't tell you things like, how to split an atom or what a cell is or anything, but to anything that is pertaining to real life stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But something, I think that if you study it long enough and deep enough, you might find that the answer to that question about a cell.
No.
That's how much faith I put in the Word of God. So
I've known guys to do that.
Yeah, well, we're not all crazy.
I would say tongue in cheek. I've had even professors that I felt like stared at the pages a little too long.
Sure.
There was a pastor, you might remember him. He's gone to be with the Lord now, but Chuck Missler was one of those guys. Super intelligent man. He was a brilliant guy, but he could see stuff in a text that no offense to him or his legacy, but
we used to call that preaching in the cracks.
Yeah, you're preaching. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you're preaching in the cracks for sure.
Yeah,
I've been fortunate to be part of, I think, three church plants.
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
And they're hard, man. They're hard, especially if you're going into it with like this mindset of, I want to start something where a lot of people come to. It's very easy to get off mission when you're kind of in that scenario. You always want to be focused. Like, I'm part of a church now. There's probably 1,500 people in this church.
Wow.
And the leadership of the church is still laser focused on mission, how getting people saved, getting people baptized, serving the community, loving people. That is, they're not stopping. We're planting other churches. We're doing a lot of other things. And that is a hard trait to find in some of the guys, especially some of the guys I've worked with. It's and myself included. It's easy to get your focus off that central mission.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The church that I'm part of out here is incredibly missions minded, and which I love. Not only does the church support, I can't even tell you how many missionaries the church supports, but our pastor himself and his family each individually support missionaries on their own outside of the church. And he's such an encouragement to get other people to do that as well. I've done that myself. But when I first moved here to Texas, one of the first things I did is I grabbed a bunch of tracts and I went door to door, Not gonna, hey, I'm new in the neighborhood. This is where I live. Here's my name. Here's my phone number. I want to start a Bible study. If you're interested, come on over. It's at my house and all that stuff. And I had 3 people
Yeah.
show up, but it was fine. It was 3 people showed up. We had a great time. Enjoyed the fellowship around the Word of God. Got them placed in a good Bible believing church, and Lord willing, as far as I know, they're still there. So it's serving the Lord in that respect is great. And we're way off the subject here, but so let me try to bring that back, because I can't believe it's already 22. So you said that the mind is programmable, but most men are running someone else's code.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the first time you experienced anything, right? Whether it was, let's say, conflict at home. I'll give you an example. Somebody who's young and maybe 6, 7 years old, gets left home alone. There's no food in the house, and he or she is really hungry.
Mm-hmm.
They've never been in that situation before, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate this. And they're somewhat emotionally heightened because they're alone and they're a little kid and they're hungry and they're looking for food. That can be pretty emotionally impactful to a lot of people. And so you search for, there's a panic, like a scarcity programming that jumps in that says, hey man, you're alone and you have no food. You don't know when you're going to get food again. This is a major problem. And as a kid, or even as adults, sometimes we can allow those stories to spiral until we're in a full-blown panic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in those moments, you're taking in some program. Your body, your mind is figuring out what is going to work. Of all the options I have right now, what is going to work? And then you say, well, I think I could probably scrape a couple crackers together. I think I saw some crackers fall underneath a cabinet once or something. And you go in and you look. Well, you fast forward now 15 years and you're 300 pounds and you have an eating problem. Where does that eating problem come from? And when you talk to some of these guys, they're going, and you kind of dig a little to figure out what they're eating for. Oftentimes, in this particular case at least, you would find that they have a panic, like we do with milk. They eat when they can. They eat when they feel a little bit hungry because they don't want to wait until they're too hungry, because by that time there might not be any food. Right? And then what? And so they play the story in their head where they say, I got to eat as soon as I feel a little bit of pain. And so they develop an eating habit. It's, Pavlov did this interesting conditioning response with the dog. If you guys, probably if your audience knows a thing where Ivan Pavlov, he discovers conditioning. He rings a bell, he feeds a dog a treat, rings a bell, feeds a dog, rings a bell, feeds a dog, and until at which point, over and over again, the dog will start salivating just by him ringing the bell.
Right.
And so it dawns on him in this experiment that we train our flesh to expect a certain reward when a certain stimulus is applied. So for the dog, it was ringing the bell equals I get a treat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say for a man who maybe he grows up in the midst of a sexually abusive family, or he gets addicted to porn or something early on, and he trains himself that when life gets stressful, I can watch porn, and I could do this or I could do that, and that'll make me feel better. So every time he gets stressed out, that's what he runs to.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he trains his body to expect that response. But here's the problem. It's not just stress now, because when he's activated or he's triggered by stress, fine. But now he's not just triggered by stress. He's triggered by any woman walking down the street. He's triggered by any stiff breeze that goes by. I've known guys that were so deep in this that they had multiple triggers. It's not just the bell for a treat. There's 1,000 different things that would trigger the same response.
Wow.
And so you can go back to the origin of that on many occasions. You can kind of go back to what is the trigger for this specific response, and you can reprogram the trigger.
What does it actually look like to reprogram your mind as a Christian?
Well, in Romans 12 tells us to be transformed. We will be transformed from this old man, from the man of darkness, from the man of sin, into the man that Christ is, right? That's
By the renewing of your mind, yeah.
By the renewing of our mind. And so, first of all, I think what we need to do is identify those things that trigger us. What is causing us to sin? Because we're no longer bound by it, right? We died with Christ on the cross. We're no longer slaves to sin. And to the extent that you are a slave to sin and you cannot help it, is to the extent that you may need to question whether or not you've had a full conversion or not.
Right.
Like, are you spiritually alive or are you not? Because slaves to sin are not. We sin now as a choice or as a condition of our flesh. And so if we're willing to, we need to identify those areas. And, when you asked, how do we reprogram as a Christian? Well, identify the trigger, subject that trigger to a new response. So if the guy is looking at a lady and immediately he feels this flood of whatever that makes him want to do whatever he normally does. I assume this is a PG show, so we'll keep it PG. Instead of doing that, we then reprogram him to, when he sees a woman that's not his wife, specifically when he's not his wife, he looks at that woman as a soul created in the image of God, worthy of dignity and respect, and not as an idol to be worshipped or to give your energy to, and not as some object that you can rub one out to. It's not loving towards her.
That's right.
Treating her like an object. It's not loving towards God, because you're telling God, hey, what you've given me and my wife isn't enough. Right? So you're not loving God with all your heart, soul, your mind, and your strength, and you're not loving your neighbor, i.e. that woman, as yourself.
That's right.
So we identify the triggers, and then we, instead of going, ooh, man, that chick's hot, we go, oh, that chick is made in the image of God. And then sometimes, depending on how quickly that response or what that gap is, there's a trigger, and then there's a response, and then there's a gap in between. It's a response gap. If you've just rehearsed the same response over and over and over again, that response gap gets shorter and shorter. So to the point where, let's say you have an anger issue and you get angry when you're driving. Well, the first time you did that, you were driving, somebody cut you off, and you were like, how do I respond to this? So that gap is long. And then you decided at the end of that gap, I'm going to start throwing sign language and cussing at him and freaking out. And then, so that rewards you because you get some dopamine, you get adrenaline, you get all these things going through your body. So you get the reward.
Right.
The more you do that, the shorter that gap gets. So now when somebody cuts you off on the street, you don't think about how I'm going to respond. You just do it. F you, buddy. And now you're a rage monster, and you don't know why you're a rage monster. It's developed over now several years, and you don't know how to control yourself because that gap is so tight. So we train guys how to expand that gap, give themselves a little bit more time to respond, and then we embed a new response, something that's more honoring to the Lord, something that's going to encourage love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, self-control, like Galatians tells us, as opposed to rage and anger.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It's almost like a conditioned response too. The way you make it sound like it's like you get conditioned to respond in that quick, derogatory way, and then you're training them to I guess don't want to say decommission or you're trying to
Reprogram.
reprogram. Yeah, there you go. Uh,
Yep.
you're reprogrammed, and I guess not everybody responds the same though to it, right? Sometimes people take a little bit longer than others to respond to it.
Yeah, and somewhat depends. That's some part of the beginning work as we're kind of figuring out what motivational strategies people use, what their values and beliefs are, who they believe that they are. Oftentimes you get a guy in your office or in a coaching scenario, and I say, I ask a lot of guys this. I go, "Who are you?" And they say, "Well, I'm just a wretched sinner, saved by grace." And while that sounds pious and it sounds humble and it sounds whatever it's supposed to sound in Christian circles,
Right.
putting that word just in there ties your identity to just being a sinner. And so I think in part, helping people realign their identity with who God says that they are helps them readjust their beliefs, helps them with their capabilities, the new capabilities that we install, adjust the way that they conduct themselves, and then their new conduct creates different conditions. And so instead of saying, "Well, I'm just a sinner," you go, "Well, I'll grant you that you're a sinner, but you're not just a sinner." Right? That's God saved you so that you're a saint that sins.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a sinner that saints. Right? You're not somebody that accidentally does something right. Right? You're a new creation in Christ. Something's got to, when we look at 2 Corinthians 5, and he tells us that we're a new creation in Christ, the old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. And you still hold on to that identity that I'm still just a worthless sinner. Because then that passage means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We are something new. We have control. And we can identify, and not all, this is a lifetime journey, right? We don't know exactly what triggers are tied to the responses. Sometimes those triggers surprise us. It's a tone from your wife. Can you at least take out the trash? Right? That's a kind of an over dramatization of how she would say it. But that could really irritate you. Like, "Hey, what are you talking? At least take out the trash. What are you talking to, lady?"
Right. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. It's the tone that can trigger it. And it might be an unintentional tone too. It could be
For sure.
something has been bugging her all day, and she's just frustrated, and then it comes out that way. And then, but then it's what makes it worse is how you might respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to respond to it by flying off the handle, or are you going to respond to it in a gentle way and say, I got it, I'll take care of it right now, and just let it slide.
Well, and if you don't know how to manage that stimulus response gap,
that's right. Yeah.
then it's going to be very difficult. If you're just used to flying off the handle as soon as she has attitude with you, well, then that's going to get tougher and tougher. But so
what is the verse? I think it's Proverbs 15:1. It said, "A soft answer turneth away wrath."
Yeah.
So
so it's a long way of answering your question. Like, how are we programmed? We're programmed in every way. Culture is programming us. TV is programming us. The things we listen to are programming us. We're programming ourselves by how we reward ourselves for what we want, right? It's like Saturday nights come, I eat a pint of ice cream. Why? Because it's hot, and that's what I've programmed my body to expect on Saturday night.
And I guess there are some other, and to use that example too, there are some people who go worse than that. Some people are programmed that, all week long, I don't touch this, but tonight I'm cracking that bottle.
Yep. Right.
It's Friday night.
It's Friday night. Friday night is bender night. Like you're not going to see me till Sunday evening. It's right. Yeah. So some people, and the more you reward your flesh, because there's deeds of the flesh. The more you reward the deeds of the flesh, it's interesting in Romans 6, Paul talks about how he was alive apart from the law, but when the law came, sin came alive and he died, right? He's talking about, he says, because sin, seizing an opportunity through the commandment aroused in me coveting of every kind.
Mhm.
And so what I get from that passage is that sin not only can recognize opportunities, but sin can seize upon them.
Yeah.
And addict you to these addict you to these patterns. So it's not just a flesh programming. It is a flesh programming that is being encouraged, if you will, by the sin nature that still resides in the flesh.
Now, you've worked with a lot of guys that, you know, for the most part, successful on the outside, but that's struggling internally.
Yeah,
Why
it's a
why
lot
do
of
you
guys.
why do you think so many Christian men feel empty inside despite having it all? The quote unquote having it all.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, some of them are dealing with things like they're still trying to please their parents,
Mm.
right? Their dad was never satisfied. Their dad was, like riding them real hard. Or, some guys are afraid if they fail, they're going to disappoint their wife, or, they're afraid that somebody's going to look at them oddly. We don't like to confess our sins to our brothers because we're afraid to look weak or afraid to look like we don't have it together.
Oh
It's
yeah.
a prideful response for sure. But, when, let's say in regards to their wives, they don't want to look like a failure, or they don't want to let their wives down. That's an honorable kind of stance. I mean, that's not bad, except that they don't have any outlet by which they sit around and actually, open up to somebody. Maybe it's not your wife. Maybe you need to find a coach, or maybe a group of men that you can hang out with and say, here's what I'm struggling with. I absolutely hate people when I drive, and I don't, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and be able to be able not to vent. Forget venting. Venting only releases adrenaline and endorphins and all kinds of things that get you addicted to venting. Eventually, you just become some guy that shows up to the party and brings everybody down because they're no fun to be around,
Hmm.
right? Because you got so addicted to venting. We're not talking about venting. We're just talking about being honest, open, transparent, having real good fellowship
Agreed.
that you can leave baggage behind and not let that affect your family or your business.
And I think that's one reason why I think men's groups in churches are so important.
Yep.
Uh, uh, my church here doesn't do it as frequently as I would like them to. But the church that I was APing in back in New York, we would have a weekly men's fellowship, and actually it was twice a week. It was Thursday night we had a men's Bible study, and then on Saturdays we had a men's breakfast.
Mm.
And one of the guys in the church would cook, and we'd all sit over there and complain about his cooking. And then we'd have Bible study at the same time, so like 2 Bible studies in the week just for the guys. And it was an opportunity just for the guys to sit there and just emote, just let
Yep.
everything out and just talk, and that iron sharpeneth iron.
Mm.
You spend that time together in those kind of groups, and that's why it's so important. So work like that you do, like, I think that's such important work to do,
Mm.
is to give a guy an opportunity to open up, to show his emotions, because I guarantee you things that bother me bother you, bother just like anybody else, just like the whole milk thing, right?
Yeah.
You think you're the only one in the world with that problem, but you know what? No, there are other people in
Mm.
the world with that problem. I know it's a silly example, but still, the
Yeah.
point is that it's important to have that type of support and that type of fellowship. That is,
Mhm.
it's critical in your
Yeah.
walk with the Lord. If you don't have that
Yep.
in your walk with the Lord, you're going to stumble and fall.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and real quick, I know we're running short on time, but it's important too not to let the ghosts in your life dictate how you behave.
yeah, I was coming to
You
that
know,
too. Yeah,
some of these guys have their dad in their head saying, "Hey, boy, we don't talk about our feelings. We don't discuss this stuff with other people."
right.
And so as soon as they start opening up, they hear their dad's voice telling them to be quiet.
Yeah, no, it's a tough being a guy is not the easiest thing in the world. I know
Mhm.
there are so many expectations on you, even in this woke generation where they encourage you to be more in touch with your feelings and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
A, a, deep down inside, a man naturally is not going to be like that. He is going to tough it out. He's going to do what he has to do to take care of his family, his responsibilities, his obligations. And, and unfortunately, the support's really not there a lot of times. And that's why, I appreciate groups like that and programs that you do.
Yeah, thanks.
There are many out there for sure, but not all of them are not all of them are good for everybody. You have to find the right one that's for you.
Yeah. Amen.
And I always advocate that if someone's looking for some kind of a men's help group or an encouragement type of group, look for something faith-based.
Yep.
Because I think that's where you're going to get the most realistic evaluation of what it is that you're dealing with, because you're looking at it from not just your perspective as the group leadership. You're looking at it from a biblical perspective, how God sees it, and because God is the one who created you. He gave you these feelings. He gave you these things that you're dealing with, and he knows the answer to the problem.
Yep.
So I know we're pressed up for time here. So man, I got to change my schedule so we can talk more about these things.
I could talk about this stuff all night, bro.
So could I, brother. I really could. So I'm going to ask you just two more quick questions, okay?
Sure.
So if you could address the younger generation of men right now, what is one warning that you would or encouragement that you would want to give them?
I would say this is going to be hard. I'll make this short, but it's going to be super to the point. I would say this: do not train your flesh to expect sexual gratification from anything other than being in the presence of your wife.
Great point. Great point. And it's very timely too, because somebody I know had asked me that question because her 13 or 14-year-old son asked her that question, and she wasn't sure how to answer that question. And I answered it very similar to the way you did. So that's great, and I appreciate that. All right, so I would love to have you back on the show at some point so we can actually get into the other stuff that I have for you. So let's get in touch with each other afterwards and let's work something out. So where can the audience go to find out more about you and your work and
everything I'm doing right now is at jakegiffin.com. You can go there and peruse and make yourself at home.
All right, outstanding. And I know we have it in our show notes on the audio and the video feed. So, so folks, make sure you check them out. All right, Jake Giffin.
Everywhere else at Jacob, pretty much everywhere else at Jake Giffin, at Jake Giffin. So
okay, outstanding. We'll get that all in the show notes as well. Jake, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it. Take care. God bless you.
You too.
All right, folks. Jake Giffin. Make sure you check him out. He has some great work. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of a break here, and then when we come back, it'll be about a 2 minute and 50-second break. All right, how about that for accuracy? 2 minute, 50-second break. We'll be back, and don't forget, folks, this is a live show weeknights, 7 p.m. Central Time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends, your family, and your followers. That way, you'll help us to spread out what we're doing here, and we really would appreciate if you would hit that like button, especially because that helps with the algorithm and gets us trending on the on YouTube and Rumble and all the other platforms that we're streaming on right now. All right, so we'll be back right after this. This is the Joe Rooz Show, and we will be back shortly. Stay with us.
Up and down, counting out, smiling through the taste of blood in my own mouth. I got bruises and broken bones, but they don't know I ain't in this ring alone. I'm a fighter. No one can say that I'm a running hider. I was born to be a do or dyer, a make it righter. Don't throw that towel just yet. Don't cash in that last bet, 'cause I hit harder when I'm tired. I'm a fighter. Get back up, that's what I do. I didn't soldier on this far just to lose. So take your shot. Is that all you got? I'm a fighter. No one can say that I'm a running hider. I was born to be a do-or-dyer, a make-it-rider. Don't throw that towel just yet. Don't cash in that last bet, 'cause I hit harder when I'm tired. Yeah, I'm a fighter. Oh, no one can keep me down. They didn't know, but they know now. That I'm a fighter. No one can say that I'm a running hider. Don't cash in that last bet. Don't throw that towel just yet. I'm a fighter.
All righty, folks. First hour is in the books on this Friday evening here in Eagle Pass, Texas. It is great to be with you guys here. Hope you guys enjoyed the first hour with Jake Giffin. Man, I had so many more questions to go with him. I can't believe that the hour flew by as fast as it did. But you know what? That's how it goes. That's how it goes sometimes. Good conversations, they seem to fly by. That's all right. Waiting in the wings right now is our second hour guest, Landon Shumway. And we'll be bringing him on here momentarily. But first, folks, I want to tell you about Podhome. Podhome.fm. Podhome is my audio host platform for the podcast version of the show. And Podhome is the most modern and easy-to-use podcast hosting platform you're going to get anywhere. You can use Podhome to publish your episodes, enhance your audio, automatically generate transcripts, chapters, titles, show notes, and more. You can even broadcast your podcast live. And you can even do that through a website that they will provide for you. Or you can download the code and use it on your own. You can use their player on your own website if you chose to do it that way. Podhome is all you need in one spot hosting platform. Now, I've used other platforms, some of the bigger names, and I'm not going to say who it is, but I've used two others prior to coming over to Podhome. And for the amount of money that I was paying those, I get infinitely more services and better service with podhome.fm. Now, you can head over to podhome.fm and sign up. You get 30 days free, and then it's $15.99 a month after that. And folks, I promise you could shop around to any of the other platforms, the host platforms, and you will not get everything that Podhome is offering you for that much money. Okay? You will be paying at least double, maybe 3 times as much. So check out podhome.fm. That's podhome.fm. You get 30 days free, and then you get $15.99 a month after that, and everything is included that you could possibly need to have a great podcast. It's literally almost like having an entire team working with you on your show when it's really not. That's how good podhome.fm is. So check them out. And heard today that their Podhome app is actually going to be released very, very soon. Their Podhome player. It's not for the management of the podcast, but it's actually the Podhome player. And I have been fortunate enough to be part of the beta program on that. It is a great app. You are going to love it. It's currently waiting approval right now in the Apple Store. Android's on the way. So keep your eyes out for that and check it out. It's a free download, and you're going to love it. I think it's a great app. And Barry, who puts all the work into it, and he does a great job. And we're going to get him on the show here very soon. It's been a while since we spoke to him. So we're going to do that very, very soon. And then, again, you're going to love it, folks. Podhome.fm, podhome.fm. Check them out. All right. So, sorry about, I'm drinking a lot of water. You know, I felt fine all day up until about an hour before the show. And all of a sudden my voice started going. I started getting stuffy again in the nose. So I took some cold meds and they're drying me out. So that's why I'm drinking so much tonight. So forgive me for that. All right. But our second guest tonight, Landon Shumway, lives right at the intersection of technology and human purpose. He's a software engineer who uses AI daily in his work. He's also the author of We Can Be Perfect, The Paradox of Progress, a novel written with AI that explores what happens when automation eliminates the need for human labor. Through his book and his research, Landon dives into questions most of us are just beginning to wrestle with, like what happens to a society when millions of jobs vanish? How do we redefine purpose when survival no longer requires work? And is there a way to design a new economic system where prosperity is shared by all, not just a wealthy few? This isn't just theory. Landon has lived the tension of AI replacing human output, and his work pushes us to imagine both the dangers and the possibilities of a fully automated future. Landon, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what's something about you that most people don't know that should?
Oh, man. So I grew up in the suburbs of Phoenix, and I used to be a skater punk. So I would go to the skate park all the time. Yeah, like it's interesting. I don't skate much now, but like I find that it still helps me like with my balance all these years later. Like I got two little kids, they're always trying to knock me over, and I still like all the skills I developed. Standing on a board helps a lot when you're wrestling with kids. But yeah, that's probably something a lot of people don't know about me. So
you have two kids? You don't look like you're old enough to have two kids.
Oh yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So yeah, they keep me on my toes for sure.
The 3-year-old might be a little bit young for this, but what about the 6-year-old? You got them on a skateboard yet or what?
We actually, I have an electric skateboard that we'll ride around the park once in a while. It's just like you control it with your hand and then it
Nice.
pushes around. We've taken a couple good falls on it, but he enjoys doing that. So
It's all right. You fall down, you get back up. That's all.
that's right. That's right.
That's it. So, all right. So what's your go-to beverage at the end of the day to help you unwind?
Oh man. I like to make smoothies and stuff. I do a lot of just like banana smoothies. Like that's an interesting question. That's probably it. Yeah, just smoothies.
You know, I don't mean to laugh, but it's to me, it's just so funny that out of all the questions that we come up with for the show, I always ask those first two questions, always, to everybody. And everybody stumbles over those two questions.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like it makes you, like it really checks a person out. Like it's not something you prepare for, so it's a good one to throw at them. So
I get you. And plus smoothies. So tonight, folks, I don't know if you've realized this tonight, but tonight we've had two completely unexpected and different answers from any other guest that I've asked that question for. Jake said his drink is milk.
okay.
And you're with a smoothie. You're the only two people that I've asked that question to on the show that have answered like that.
What's the go-to? Yeah.
Usually everybody says water. You know,
boring. Just kidding.
Nobody's brave enough to say that they crack open the vodka or the bourbon or the whiskey.
Right.
They've had that kind of a week and they need to take the edge off.
Right.
But my go-to has always been bourbons. I love bourbon. Bourbon and a cigar. That's a good way to end the week, especially if I didn't kill anybody during the course of the week. Then yeah. And we're pretty good. It's like the victory dance.
Yep.
But since I've been sick, I've just been sucking down the green tea with honey and lime,
Right.
and sparkling water. So
right. Hey, that works.
Mm-hmm. Although I grabbed the wrong one. I grabbed the one that has it's mineral water, so it's has that little calcium or salt in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's drying me out more than what it was.
Oh man, dehydrating
I
yourself.
I thought I grabbed the right one, but I didn't. So So tell us a little bit about you first. What led you to become a software engineer, and how long have you been in the field?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in AI, actually. As a kid, I grew up watching shows like Star Trek, which I think a lot of people in the STEM field obviously were inspired by that show. But yeah, like it really resonated with me, this idea that like technology could help improve humanity. And I've definitely seen that in my career where I've been able to build tools that is crazy. Like I write it myself, but then it goes on to be used by hundreds of thousands of people, which is pretty remarkable when you think about that. Like one individual, if they have, the ability, like, and the determination, we can build things that improve life for everybody. So that's kind of what got me in the field. And I've been in the industry about 6 years now. I'm a certified Amazon solutions architect. So a lot of people don't know this about Amazon, but obviously they have their storefront where you go buy stuff. But another big industry they have is a cloud hosting platform, where, I mean, they're raking in big bucks through that. And so, yeah, so I specialize in building architectures in that space. And it's been really great. Like, I feel really fortunate. Most days I get to go to work and like really enjoy what I'm doing. And I definitely recognize that as a privilege. But yeah, that got me into, obviously when AI started getting really big, right? ChatGPT's been almost 3 years ago now. And I knew right away, like, this was going to revolutionize the industry. The fact that it, like, I could give it an English phrase of like what I wanted it to do, and it can give me code, was fascinating, right? That's just mind blowing. And over the last 3 years, it's just gotten really good. It's gotten every year, like they come out with a new model and it just gets better and better. And it's gotten to the point now, like in my current position, right? I'll have a task that normally would have taken me a week to knock out just by hand on my own. And leveraging AI, I can get that same task done within an 8-hour workday, which is absolutely insane, right? And so, yeah, like over the last couple of years, I was an early adopter of this technology, and I definitely see where it's going. And it just leaves this question burning in the back of my mind, like, okay, so what happens when I don't have to do much at all, where it can just do it with very little intervention for me as a human. And that really sparked some interesting questions that I started to explore as an author. So I do writing on the side, obviously. And as I was looking, obviously there's been a huge impact creative wise, like image generation, right? We've had the technology for a couple of years now where it could just generate images on the spot. And that's impacted a lot of artists, a lot of freelancers that otherwise, I'd be going to a human to like get artwork done for things. And now I can just go straight to a tool like ChatGPT and take the human out of the loop. That's really remarkable in a lot of ways, but it's also kind of scary too, because people depend on their ability to work for their livelihood.
Yeah.
And as I was looking at this problem of like on one side, we're really excited about this because it's so cool. Like, look at all these things it could do. And yet there's this feeling in the back of our minds, like, oh, what's this going to mean for people that we're taking out of the loop of just needing human labor to get things done? Yeah. And that was one of the questions I wanted to explore with this novel that I co-authored with AI. And the reason I co-authored it was I wanted to explore as a creative medium, right? There's a lot of what we call in the industry AI slop, where people will just put in low quality of effort. The AI will spit something out and then they'll just publish it, right, on Amazon or whatever. And it's not good. It's not creative. It's kind of soulless content that's just regurgitating what's been said before.
Sometimes you can tell when you're reading something that's been AI generated. You kind of get the feeling that that coldness behind it.
Yeah, there's no emotion to it.
Yeah.
It's very, it's robotic, which is, is fitting because it was written by a machine. And I wanted to explore this idea, like, okay, so what if we didn't just use it to churn out soulless content? What if we could actually use it to amplify our ability to create? And artists do this, graphic designers, I know several people in the industry that when they use the technology correctly, it enhances their ability to create. and which is, how it should be. And so I wanted to explore this in the context of writing a novel, where could I use this technology to really create an experience for a reader that just amplifies what you would normally get, for reading a standard novel. And as I've been working with the technology, it has just blown my mind how it's, first of all, advanced, because I started this project about a year and a half ago. And the models that were out then, they're pretty advanced, but there was still some, like, as I was working with it, it was definitely difficult. I'd have to massage a lot of the output that had come through with my own thoughts and creativity. But over the last year, the models that they've been coming out with have significantly increased the quality of the prose that it can generate when you give it a good prompt. I think a big part of it, a big lesson I've learned from this is AI is really just a mirror. It reflects our intentions and our effort that we prompt it with. And if we use that, we could use that for good, right? Like if we prompt it to, I know right now in my field, a lot of people are using apps to use AI to create things that just weren't possible before, that could really help people like with special needs and disabled individuals. And I think that's really cool. And so, but a part of that is we have to use it for the right reasons, because at the same time, we can also use it to develop pathogens. We could use it to develop weapons. We could strap it to robots with guns, so there's just all these concerns of what are we going to build with this? And that
you said robot with guns, and I thought of the Terminator.
Yeah, right. And that's where we all go. Like whenever you think like, oh, AI, Skynet, it's going to take over, it's going to replace us. And
well, there is a Skynet.
Yeah, like
the government does have Skynet, and that's what it's called.
They actually call that. Okay, I haven't. I'll have to go read up on that.
Yeah, but, you should.
Yeah, and it's like it's a shame, because like there's all this potential of like all the good things we could do with it, but at the same time, if you could do good things with it, it's just a tool. Like if you could do good things with it, you can also do bad things with it.
Right.
And so I think one of the reasons I wrote this novel is I wanted to ask the question: where are we heading as a future in our society with this technology? Because the technology is not going away. I talked to a lot of people and like, oh, it's hype. Like it's going to blow over. It's a bubble. And that may be true in the short term, right? Like it may be that tools like ChatGPT won't completely replace all of human labor, right? But you have to think of the technology kind of like the internet, right? If we go back to the 90s, when the internet was first coming out, and you had all these like cat images and like these random rainbow websites, and nobody really knew like what was going to happen with this technology. It was just kind of, oh, that's weird, but interesting. Yeah. And now look at every facet of our lives revolves around social media and podcasts and like consuming content. And all that was made possible because of the beginnings of the internet, right? That we've built on top of as a platform. And I think we seriously have to consider as a society, the same is going to be true for AI. So even if AI, like, there's a lot of stuff it can't do right now. There's a lot of limitations, but it's going to be on this platform that we're going to build technology within the next 10, 20 years. That's just going to blow us away, like just never seen before, unprecedented. And so that leaves us with a question: what are we going to do with that? Right? Because if we get to a point where millions of jobs are being replaced by AI, how are we going to account for those individuals that, they're healthy, capable adults, but there's no place for them in the market, right? Because the technology can do it at a cheaper rate, and it can do it much faster than a human can.
Right.
And I wanted to explore some of those ideas of, okay, like right now, I think if you ask most people, like, how are we going to sort this out if everybody loses their job? Well, let me ask you this: like, how could you see humanity like dealing with a crisis like that, where everybody's just having their job replaced?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
it's a great question. You would of course you'd automatically assume that there would be some government program that's going to get put into place where it'll be supportive. But eventually, though, if people aren't generating revenue to support those things,
where's it coming from? Right.
Exactly. You can't keep printing money.
Exactly. And that's
as much as the government would like to.
Right. Yeah. Because then you just end up with hyperinflation, and that's the biggest issue. So right now, like, I think if you ask most people in the field who have been looking into this problem space, they're going to argue for something like a universal basic income. So for anyone who's not familiar with that concept, it's the idea that the government is going to subsidize people that are incapable of working. Everybody gets a minimum basic income. And obviously we saw like an example of that with the pandemic, right? Where people were getting checks to try to hold off the issue of they couldn't work because we were all locked down. Right. And obviously that generated a lot of debt for the country. And so, but yeah, like a lot of people look at universal basic income.
Not only did it generate a lot I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Not only did it generate a lot of debt for the country, but it also made a lot of people not want to go back to work because they were getting more by staying home than they were by actually going to work.
Yes. Right. And that's a sad, I think, telling sign of the market of just the fact that people are under such poor conditions that, it's they don't even want to go back to work. And so it's an interesting problem because with universal basic income, right, like it's very hand wavy. People say, oh, the government will just send checks to everybody. It's like, okay, like you brought up, how are they going to fund that, right? And they'll say, well, they'll tax the rich. Like the rich will be owning all this technology, all this AI, it'll be generating this wealth. We just tax the rich, and then comes in through the government. Well, there's obviously like there's a lot of problems with that, and we don't have to get into all of them. But like at the core of it, the biggest issue with universal basic income that I see is that it doesn't address the problem that you as an individual will have no ownership over anything. You will be completely dependent on the government for your livelihood.
2030.
Yeah.
Agenda 2030. I'm sorry. That's the WEF has been talking about that for some years now, and their mantra is by 2030 you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah, and some people
we have companies like BlackRock and Blackstone, all them that buying up all these properties that have been mysteriously damaged, from all these supposed natural disasters that just spark up out of nowhere. Then they come swooping in. They buy all this stuff dirt cheap. They build rentals. And they're just renting out to people. It's right there in front of your face.
Yeah, absolutely. And the individual has no ownership over anything. And it sets us up for failure. And so the idea, like with universal basic income, that's just going to exacerbate the problem significantly, because you'll be completely dependent on the whims of the government to determine how much you're going to get. What restrictions,
and if they implement these social credit scores, and they do it like a CBDC, and that which is if you're not familiar, if people who are listening aren't familiar with it, central bank digital currencies, where the government is in control of that, and if you, I'm sure you're familiar with the term wrongthink. If you are accused of wrongthink, and they could just shut your electronic wallet off, and you can't buy anything, you can't sell anything, you won't be able to pay your bills, put food on your table, take care of your medical expenses or anything like that, because they control your means to do that.
Yeah.
That's Agenda 2030.
And that's the reality we're heading to right now. If we don't explore alternatives for individuals, again, at the just lower income levels, we have to explore alternatives for how could we as a society share ownership over this wealth that AI is going to generate. And so that was one of the questions I wanted to tackle in writing this novel is how could we, because like you have utopian ideas like Star Trek where they're like, we just don't use money anymore, right? And it's like, okay, that's nice. But how do you realistically, you need a medium of exchange between parties in order to have that trust that no one's going to screw each other over, right? And so I wanted to, in this novel, really take a hard look at, like, let's seriously consider what would an alternative economic system look like, not based on just the oligarchy owning stuff. Because if everybody, if the top owns all the resources of AI and they're faster and cheaper to work, where does that leave the rest of us? And so my answer to this, like as I've been looking and working on this novel, the term I came up with is automationism, which in a nutshell, it's the way to describe it is it's collective ownership of automated production. Okay. And the whole concept behind it is you have collective ownership with your community where AI is the means of production. They manage all the labor with minimal human oversight to, make sure things keep running. And what got really interesting as I was exploring this idea is I was like, okay, so ideally, like if you're going to share stuff with the community, you want it to be small. Like you want it to be, because there's limitations in like human communication, how much we can coordinate with like how many people before it just gets kind of, difficult. And that's one of the biggest issues with government, right? It's just so big and there's so many branches and there's so many like channels of communication people have to go through to get anything done. It makes it really difficult to make decisions that actually benefit society. Because by the time they make decisions, like it's too late. It's
the layers of bureaucracy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a real problem. And it's just one of the limitations of human biology, right? Like we can only, the more channels of communication you go through, it's just going to drastically drag out the time it takes to get things done. And so, okay, so let's explore, can we make it, this community like smaller and have this collective ownership concept. And so from this, I came up with this idea of a cell. And you could think of a cell as like, it's kind of like a mix between a publicly traded company and a town, where you as a shareholder, you're also a member of the community. Okay. And so you run an industry, whether it's agricultural or manufacturing, right? There's something that you as a community, you are co-owners over this means of production. And AI is running the labor costs. So, and all the profits that are generated by that industry flow into the co-owners of the cell. And it's interesting because we actually see this today. This isn't just kind of pie in the sky kind of stuff. We actually see this in several examples. The biggest one I drew from when I was writing this was the idea of Native American casinos. So I don't know if you've ever been out like on a reservation and like gone to a casino out there.
Yeah, I have one in here.
Yeah, and they're all over. And what's really interesting about, now every tribe's different in how they allocate the resources that's generated from it. But there's several tribes that they'll take the profits that are generated by those casinos. And because the tribe is co-owners of the land that the casino is based on, they will share the profits between all those members of the tribe. And actually, I know some people really close that they were able to leave work as a result of this. And they get these payments from the profit sharing. Right. And so this was really fascinating because it's like, okay, so if AI is replacing human labor and we're not, we could try to cling to this idea like, well, humans might beat robots out of something, right? And who knows, it could be 20 years, it could be 50 years, but I believe personally, eventually the technology will get to the point that robots could probably do most of what people can do from a physical labor standpoint. And so if we're heading that way, then the question becomes, okay, is there a way that we can still provide an income for individuals, even though they're not able to, or it's not reasonable for them to trade time for money? Because that's the biggest asset that most of us have, in the working class. We don't have any capital to like retire off of anything. So our biggest asset is time, right? We're trading time for money to keep a roof over our heads, food on the table, all those stuff you mentioned. And so what gets interesting though, obviously with AI, when it can do it faster and cheaper, now time, the one resource that we in the working class had, is now just flooded with, it's just not a hot commodity anymore, right? Because as supply goes up, the value of that resource goes down. And so if that is the direction we're heading in, then the question becomes, okay, so can we think of a way where individuals and citizens can still make an income without having to trade that time for money? And the only way you're going to do that, right? I think anybody who works in passive income understands this, is you have to own something, right? You have to have ownership of something that is generating an income and you take a portion of that. Yeah. And so I think, at a core, like it comes down to, can we as a society envision this ability for us to share resources, as we always teach our kids, right? Like it's great to share. But like to actually take that concept and start applying it at an economic scale where what's really interesting is, right, so if you have these individual cells, they have their industries, they're producing some sort of good or service, and that gets exchanged in the global market for money, which then gets distributed to the individuals, the members of the cell. But what's interesting is you can start building on top of these little building blocks to create like a network of cells where now we're sharing co-ownership, not just of our industry and our goods, but we have, you can have a sister network that they have industry and goods, and we can now trade resources in a way that's beneficial for everybody. Because there's that trust there, like it reduces the overhead of money. And that's where you start like really looking into kind of a Star Trek like situation where if everyone's co-owners of everything in a legal way that can be, enforce trust between the parties, that's where you start looking at that kind of scenario where money is not as critical, as it was before, because now we have laws in place and resource sharing between these networks that we can do these kind of things. But yeah, like, so that was kind of the core idea that I was exploring in the novel. And as I've been like going through that, it's definitely not feasible now, right? Like the technology is not there where AI can't just do everything that we're doing, but we still have to ask those questions because it's coming, right? It's on the horizon. And we don't know when, right? It could be, again, it might not even be in our lifetimes. Like maybe the bubble is just so big and it just turns out like maybe it replaces, certain white collar jobs, but, maybe just robotics. There's like this hurdle, we've been doing self-driving cars for over a decade now, and we're just still not there, right? It gets a little bit closer every time, but there's just these huge hurdles to where we can just let it take the wheel. But even though it's not here yet, I think we can still start asking those questions of what kind of future do we want to build for us and our kids? Do we want to head down the route where the government just controls all the means of income because we're now without employment? Or can we see an alternative to be able to co-own and share resources together as communities? Anyway, that's a high level of some of the concepts that I explore there.
Now, what made you decide to write a book instead of just a white paper on this?
I wanted to explore it from the emotional aspect of this is what's going to happen if we don't ask these questions. So like one of the characters in the novel, she lives in Los Angeles post, like all this is taking place. AI's replaced most human labor. And she's a basic. She's her and her family, they just live off of UBI. They get the payments every month. And she finds she has no purpose. Like, what do you do when there's like no job for her to like go pursue? And like, she's trying to get into college, but like in the future, like who's going to offer student loans when AI just can do it for way cheaper and immediately? I don't have to wait for you to get a bachelor's degree.
A line from a Star Trek movie just popped in my head when you said that.
Yeah.
And that is from the first movie. Do you remember when they encountered V'ger? The question was, is this all that I am? Is there nothing more?
Right.
I tend to think that might be that would probably be a question that a lot of people would start asking themselves.
Yeah. Like, who am I? Especially because so much of our life is revolved around work. I work full time. I put 40 hours in for my job, and it's a big part of my life. Like I put a lot of time into developing these skills. And
you have to spend more time at the workplace than you do at home with your families.
Yeah, and that's mind blowing, right? It's absolutely insane. And like I work from home, and it's just crazy to me that most of my life is spent. I have a little room like in my house, a little office space. And it's just like, that is my life. Like I'm just sitting in these four walls and I'm just staring at a screen all day and I'm writing code. And again, like there's a lot of things I enjoy about the job, but still that blows my mind that like this little time that we have on this planet, like most of it is just consumed by needing to provide for ourselves so that we don't starve and that we get a roof over our heads. And in the future, I think people are going to look back and be like, that's crazy. That's crazy that you had to like work that much just so you didn't starve. just so that you like didn't have to be homeless. I think that's going to be like, we look back at like the feudal era, like, man, how did people do that? And like,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
gonna be the
exactly.
same with us. Like, they're gonna look back and be like, man, how did they do that? That's crazy. But there's a flip side to that too, because so much of our life is like put into work. What happens when that's kind of taken away? Like, where do we derive our purpose? And for some people, that might be really easy. It's like, oh, I have my passion projects, like, or my family. I'm going to spend time with my family, or my pets, or I'm going to travel, right? Some people, that's easy answer. But I think for a lot of people, more than who care to admit, like, they derive their value and their meaning in life from getting to go to their 9 to 5, like getting to go to work.
Yeah, we had this. I told you earlier that I worked for New York City for 25 years, and one of the things that we always would joke about when I first started the job, we didn't really joke about it when I came my turn to leave, was that how many people actually that we knew that retired, and because they were so used to getting up, going to work every day, doing the job every day, having some kind of something to fulfill them throughout the course of the day, ended up passing away shortly after retirement because they didn't have that purpose anymore. They didn't feel that purpose, and they just deteriorated. Now, can you directly put a correlation between the two? No, I don't think you can really do that.
Sure.
But it just seems awfully coincidental when you know about 5 or 6 people that have done that's happened to. That's why, like, when I retired, I said, I'm going to pick up a little job someplace and keep
Right.
myself moving.
Right.
But yeah, no, I just said that in agreement with what you said.
Yeah.
I think people need to have some type of outlet to what are you going to have, a whole generation of podcasters? People sitting around behind a microphone.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's just not going to work.
No.
People need to be productive. People were made that way.
Yeah.
I don't know what your religious beliefs are, and that's fine, but I read scripture, and in the very first book of my Bible, it says that God created man to work, and he said 6 days thou shalt labor.
Yeah. And by the sweat of thy brow,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, by the sweat of thy face. So
of my face. Yeah.
So it's a big difference.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're built to work. We're built to be functional. We're built to do something. We can't just sit there.
Right.
And
we also derive joy out of it, right? Like that we can anyway. And that's the thing that's so kind of crazy about our current economic system, is that so many people are productive for what I won't say the wrong reason, right? Because it's honorable to provide for yourself and your family. But it's just a shame. Like, there's this really great book that's like BS Jobs. And this guy talks about how so many people, they don't actually do anything. Like, they go to work just to collect a paycheck because they have to. We have to have money in our current economic system to be able to get the things that we need. I worked in a position like that for a year. I was with a Fortune 500 company, and they needed to hire people, and they brought me on. They said, like, oh, we have all this stuff for you to do. I get on, and like, I was a paper pusher. And I was just like, what am I doing here? And I was making, the crazy part is I was making more money than I've ever made in any other position as a contractor. And I'm just like, the inefficiencies of our system, where we create these jobs because we need jobs, but like, we're not actually doing anything fulfilling. So where's the disconnect? Like, why can't we figure that out? And I think a lot of it has to do with, again, this idea that we have to have money, right? But money is just it's an idea. It's a tool that we came up with to establish trust between two parties. Like, so that if I'm going to buy something from you, I need something that I could then turn around and buy whatever else I need. Right. And we don't know each other, right? Like, there's just too many people on the planet. So we can't, we have to establish trust somehow. And for most of human history, that's been, fiat currency through a centralized government. But what's really interesting, and this is another thing I go into my novel, is we're on the verge of looking at alternative forms of currency, of, crypto, where I'm now enforcing trust, not by a government saying, trust me, bro, but by the fact that I have mathematics, I have cryptography, I have a ledger that is agreed upon by every interested party that is trading on this exchange. And that really opens some interesting doors for us as a society where, and obviously the government's terrified about this. They go to great lengths to try to dissuade people from, being able to set up stuff like this. But in the future, we can imagine groups and collectives that share resources completely outside of the US dollar. It's just not a fact. Now, obviously, if they trade with external parties from their internal community, they'll exchange it for whatever fiat currencies they need to. But it gets really interesting because now I can establish that trust with my community without the need for a huge centralized government to tell me what I can and cannot buy, and that, I think, mixed with AI is going to open up some really fascinating, if we can ask those questions of what we want to build with this, it can open some really interesting doors for us as a society to operate in a way that's been unprecedented. Because until now, like, the only way you could establish trust is you had to have a third party, again, saying, "Trust me, bro. Like, this currency is great." And so, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. But
How fast do you think it's going to take before this AI automation starts really wiping out entire industries?
It's a really good question. I will say, with the limit, so from my vantage point, right, as a software engineer, there are a lot of limitations with large language models in particular, so tools like ChatGPT, that really prevent it. They're really huge hurdles. And the biggest one is hallucinations. So anyone who's not familiar with this concept, it's this idea that the AI can tell you stuff that's just total BS. Mm-hmm. And it can tell you really convincingly, like, that, yeah, this is true, but it's not. And the reason it's really fascinating, it's just a limitation of the technology where it has to say something. It has to output something. And so when you're prompting it for questions that it doesn't have sufficient training data on, or it's maybe like a weird space that it hasn't, like, the data doesn't really connect, it's just going to make something up. And people do that too. I like to joke, like, humans do that too, right? Like, sometimes,
sure.
We like to. Oh yeah.
But just think of how many people actually go to something like Grok or ChatGPT, right, and whatever it spits out, they take as, well, that's fact.
Right.
Without doing anything to go check it to make sure that they got it right. Even though there are other disclaimers on both, as it says, we get it wrong sometimes.
Yep.
How many people actually just take that as gospel and say, okay, well, AI said it, so it must be true.
Yeah. I just read a story that was fascinating. This, like, 6-year-old guy, he was looking to replace salt in his diet. So he asked ChatGPT, "Hey, how can I replace salt?" And it gave him a substitute. I'm not a chemical guy, so I don't remember. It's like potassium bromide or something, which is used in insecticides.
Yeah.
And the guy didn't fact check it, and he had been taking it for like 3 months, and he ended up poisoning himself. I think he survived, but he had to go to the hospital. Oh, sure. And it's just like, that's the danger of, like, if you don't fact check what this thing's telling you. And this happens in my work too a lot, right? I will tell it, "Hey, here's the architecture I have. I need you to build something like this." And it gets me most of the way there. But the parts where it gets wrong, it's dangerously wrong. Like, the things that could really blow up the system and do some damage. And so, yeah, that going back to your original question, right? Until we find a way to overcome that particular hurdle, at least reduce the frequency in which it occurs, which is going to be a huge challenge. Because, again, it's all based on the training data that the model has in it. So if we're building new tools that we've never done before, because now we have AI and we're trying to get into a new space, I think it's going to get harder and harder for the model to keep up. That's just my intuition. I could be wrong, but again, it comes down to, until we reduce this hallucination effect in these models, that's going to be a huge hurdle, which is good, honestly, for society. It gives us time to, again, ask these questions. Let's figure out what we're going to do with this before it happens, right? Because we don't want to be caught in the middle of it and be like, "Oh, we should probably figure out, like, millions of people are losing their jobs. We should probably figure out, how we're going to help people make, a living." But yeah, if I was to guess off the top of my head, like, I don't think they're insurmountable hurdles. And what's going to, again, it comes back to my internet analogy. Today, like we just see it and we're like, that's cool. Like, but 10 years from now, right, the things we're going to build on top of that is going to blow our minds. And you're going to have new forms of models. Like, again, ChatGPT is what's called a large language model. You're going to have new breakthroughs of different types of models that do different things. They have different limitations. And what ends up happening is you're going to have these things working in tandem, and they're going to go back and forth and share knowledge and insights to then increase their ability to perform in industries. And that's where we're going to, and it could happen really fast. That's the dangerous part, or not dangerous, but just kind of nerve-wracking thing is technology is an exponential curve, right? And we see this in the last couple of decades. Like, we're way more productive now than we were, 20, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's just going to keep growing exponentially. And so that's where it gets a little nerve-wracking, because we could be saying, oh, maybe 10 years from now, maybe they have a breakthrough in 3 years from now that we're just not expecting. They found some new way to mix the models together. And now all of a sudden it can do, most of white collar jobs. And that's, yeah. So time will tell. There's obviously no way to know, because obviously if it's a breakthrough, we're not going to see it coming. But it all comes back to my point that we have to take the time to ask those questions of how we're going to use it.
Well, until they have AI robots actually doing plumbing work, you're always going to need a plumber.
Yeah. And honestly, that may be where we head to. I definitely see white collar jobs more at risk, because it could be done through a screen, whereas anything in the physical world that requires skills, physical skills, that's going to be much, much harder to replicate within robotics. Although they're working on it, right? They're not going to stop. That's the crazy part, right? Like, even though today we laugh and like, oh yeah, the robots just fall down, they can't do much. I mean, it's just a matter of time. But you're absolutely right. Like, I may get to the point where I'm out of a job software wise, and I go being a carpenter or something, go work with my hands. But time will tell. Eventually, I do see robotics getting to the point that blue collar work will also be replaceable. So I don't think there's any major hurdle that's going to keep any jobs safe that I can think of.
So we've kind of already talked about some of the things that people will be afraid of with an AI driven future, but and a lot of those fears are justified without a doubt. But on the flip side, do you think there's anything that we could be excited about with a society that where work really is maybe optional, not necessarily completely abandoned?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, so like in my novel, right? So I mentioned one of the characters, right? She grows up in a UBI based America, but then there's the other side of the equation where there's this automationist society, and it follows, kind of what does it look like there when people are sharing those resources. And one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion, is healthcare. Because if we can get technology to the point that you have doctors and nurses that are, robotic, and again, it could be way off in the future, but eventually I think we'll get there. Like, unless we just blow ourselves up, like eventually technology will get to the point that your healthcare provider could be robotic, and they could diagnose things way more accurate than a human doctor can. And that's really exciting, right? Because I don't know about you, but like I've seen a lot of issues with healthcare in America. I've kind of, like, in my own family, like I've had some issues where kind of got screwed over, by the system. Like, we pay for these insurance premiums, and then they just kick you to the curb, and it's just totally, it's corrupt. It's a scam, but we don't have alternatives, because like I can't just not have insurance and then I have some major medical, I'll go bankrupt. I think that's like one of the biggest causes of bankruptcy in America right now is just healthcare, which is ridiculous. Like, there's no reason why we can't find a way to make that reasonable, for everybody to afford. We have the technology, we have the resources. And so I think one of the biggest benefits I see with this technology is healthcare, because when we co-own these resources, as I talked about, like you can imagine a cell, like not only do they co-own the industry, but they also co-own the local medical facilities. And if I get sick or like I need to go in for care, I don't have to think, oh, how much is this going to cost me? It's like, I'm a co-owner. Like I can go in, get the care that I need, and the labor is paid for by the automation. That's what's so fascinating, right? Because like any other economic system or any other social structure before, if you were going to have somebody pay for the labor, or like if you're going to exploit the labor, you had to do that through slavery, right? Like, because somebody has to pay the price for people to benefit from work.
Mm-hmm.
But we're reaching this unprecedented space where now it's not a person that's doing the work to help you recover. It's a machine. It's an intelligent machine that can, again, diagnose you, treat you, do all these things that you need. It has the resources available to give you the care that you need, everybody the care that they need. And for me, that's super exciting because I want my kids to grow up in a world where they're not afraid to have to go get like a check or like go to the doctor because, they're not feeling good, or they have issue where they got to go to the emergency room and how am I going to afford this? I look forward to the day that people can not have to ask that question to go get the medical care that they need. Cause it's a shame. It's a shame that we're at that point. And I do think we can make it better. So.
Well, I think we're at that point now. I think there are a lot of people right now that weigh the benefit of actually going to the doctor and having to deal with the insurance issues, the premiums, the payments, and so on and so forth. I mean, how many times have you been to the doctor where you've used your insurance and then a few weeks later you get a bill in the mail because your insurance only paid $50 on a bill that was $700?
Yeah.
And now you got to come up with this additional money to pay, even though you're paying every month to get into, for the insurance. Another subject I know altogether.
Sure. I mean, but again, these are the questions we have to ask because they're not going to get better by themselves, right? And I think the other thing is we have to remember that we as the people, we in this country, we have more power than we think we do. It's just a matter of coordination. That's where it gets difficult, right? Because we have to be able to coordinate. And the internet has gone a long way to lower the barrier that people like you and me, we're having this conversation now. Other people, they can have those conversations to figure out how can we make this better? But we have to have those conversations. We have to talk about that because if we don't, it's not going to get better. There's no incentive. The thing that's interesting about capitalism is it's not good or bad. It's amoral. It's a framework in which humans decide how we're going to share resources. Mm-hmm. And the biggest kind of blind spot that I see with capitalism is it only values a human life so far as that life can generate capital, right? Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And that's really what it comes down to. If you cannot generate capital in the lens of capitalism, you're worthless. But this leaves a huge oversight, which has been just a huge gap within humanity since the beginning of time, which is who bears responsibility for the individuals that cannot generate capital through no fault of their own, right? You have children, the elderly, disabled people, in the future, people that are replaced by AI. Mm-hmm. You have all these people that through the lens of capitalism, if you cannot generate capital, you're deemed worthless, which first of all is super depressing. If that was true, which it's not. And we all know that, but we are working under the incentives of a system that has deemed that is the measuring stick by which we determine the value of life.
Are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of, and I use the word gentleman in a loose context?
Okay.
Yuval Noah Harari?
Yes. He wrote the book Sapiens, I believe, right? Is that?
Yeah, one of his books. I actually today, I wasn't really paying attention to it. And I just, do you ever just put the TV on in the background and it's just running? You're just not really watching it. It's just playing.
Right.
Well, I saw he was doing an interview on a podcast, and this show that I was watching was running a clip of that, and he was talking exactly the same thing that you and I are talking about right now. Those people whose jobs are removed and their purpose is removed because of AI. And I wasn't exactly too thrilled with the response that he got, because then he basically said that those people are no longer worth anything in society. And of course, Harari and that crowd, they're very much interested in transhumanism, and they are very interested in depopulation, and so they'll look for any excuse whatsoever to lop off a couple of million people. That no qualms about that. And I don't say that flippantly either. I'm being unfortunately very serious.
Right.
So he was talking about the exact same thing that you and I are talking about right now. What about those people who had AI take their jobs? Well, okay, so we retrain them, so then they become cashiers at, like, say, Walmart. I think that was the example he used. But then you have AI takes that job. All right, so you go from a skilled labor to unskilled labor to what at that point?
Right.
I think that's a very, very scary prospect.
Yeah, it is. And it's a shame that the answer to so many people is, yeah, you're worthless now. Tough luck. And that is just ridiculous, because the technology is there to make life better for everybody. And so anybody who answers that, it's so fascinating to me, like human nature, right? Like, as long as you're not the one that's being screwed over, it's like, yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. I'm so sorry for you. Yeah. But the reality is that life does have value outside of capital. Anyone says different, like, I'm probably not going to like hanging around you, because, like, if you just see money as a means to an end, like, your life's going to be pretty shallow, because there's just so much more to this existence than this idea that I have to be productive, I have to generate capital in order to be valuable as an individual. And quite frankly, that is going to get challenged and it's got to be by us. It's got to be by the people who don't own the automation. But the only way to fight against such a idea is you got to unite. Like, you have to find a way to share those resources so that we can be self-sustaining, right? Because one of the biggest things about, like, a cell is it's a self-sustaining economic unit. They generate all the profits they need for all the members that belong to it. And then from that, everybody's provided for. And now your value as an individual is no longer coupled to your ability to generate income. And I'm hopeful that we could figure that out. I don't know how widespread it would be. I don't know if something like that would scale. I think there's a lot of challenges to it for sure, which I explore in the book. But I think it's still, even if it's not automationism, right, there are alternatives. Like, capitalism, like, it started somewhere, right? It hasn't been around forever, and it's not going to last forever. It just can't. Especially AI is going to challenge everything that we've assumed about the value of human labor. And so we have to find an alternative to make that make sense, or else somebody is going to define that for us. And that's the kind of future I want to avoid.
Well, we've talked about a lot of pretty heavy issues tonight, so I don't want to end the show on a downer. Sure. So, who's someone that you respect right now? What are they doing that inspires you?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Someone that really inspires me, actually, believe it or not, is Jordan Peterson. I've followed a lot of. It's very divisive. He's a divisive individual, right? Depending on what side you sit on. But his work helped me a lot when I was years ago. Like, I picked up his book, 12 Rules for Life. And it's a great book. And it was amazing to me how just reading words off of a page could alter my mindset of what I was capable of achieving and what's worth striving for. And honestly, that has inspired me a lot as a writer to explore, even though it's just words on a page, if it can inspire a new generation to think differently than what we're doing, learn from our mistakes and build something better, I think that's really powerful. And so anyway, definitely somebody that's been an influence on my life.
Outstanding. All right. So where can the audience go to get some more information about you, get your book, follow you around?
Yeah. So again, the book is called We Can Be Perfect, The Paradox of Progress. It's available for pre-order now on Amazon. I actually have a sample of the first chapter. I think, can I put this in the chat right here? Do all your viewers see?
Yeah. Or if you want to put it down, if you could put in the comments after. Oh, I didn't see we had chats. Oh my goodness.
Look at that. Yeah. I'll just put it here if anyone has access to that.
Yeah, go right ahead.
That's a little link that takes you to a free sample of the first chapter. You can read it and find out where to pre-order it through that. And again, it comes out November 4th, and super excited to just see what people think about it. So,
all right. Outstanding. Why is that up on the screen there? I don't know, but okay. As long as they don't see it, that's good. Okay. All right. So, Landon, thank you again for spending the night with us. I really appreciate it. This has been great information. And to the folks in the chat, I'm sorry I didn't get to it. I didn't realize I had the chat window closed. But all of the information that we talked about tonight, locations, books, Amazon, we'll put all those links in the show notes. I think I have your website in the show notes. I don't think I have the Amazon link, so I'll make sure that gets in there.
Yeah, I'll make sure to get that too.
No, I have it actually.
Oh, okay, great.
It's on the Podmatch page. So
perfect.
So I'll just I can grab it from there. It's not a problem at all. And I would really encourage you to check it out. Check out the book. It's really interesting. The little bit of the first chapter that I looked at was fascinating. So please check it out. This is a really important subject matter too. I mean, folks, this is the future and it's here now. You know, we need to pay attention to these things and ask these questions. And like Landon said, we have to keep talking about these things. It's incredibly important to do that. Landon, thank you so much for being with us tonight. You have a great night, and we look forward to getting you back on again another time.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you, Joe. It's been great.
Okay, got it. All right, folks. Let's go wrap this thing up here. So just a couple of quick announcements. Don't forget to sign up for the programming announcements email list that we have going on the website. Just go to joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. And just when you get to the homepage, a little pop-up's going to come up, so you can just fill it out right there in that spot, or you can go to the contact section, fill it out there as well. Get on the email list. We only send you information about upcoming shows. We don't send you like sales pitches for the swag for the show or anything like that. But if you're interested in that stuff, there's a link right there at the bottom of your screen that says shop. You can click that. Grab yourself some T-shirts and sticker packs. Whatever's up there is available right now. We are in the process of redesigning some things, so not everything is available yet, but you can check it out for yourself. And if there's something that piques your interest, grab it. All right. Also, tomorrow we have our resident crypto psychic will be with us, and we'll be having our usual Saturday crypto show. We'll get that information up to you as soon as it's available. I know she had texted me during the course of the show here to make sure that we were on for tomorrow. So yes, we are. And we will get all that stuff put together then. All right. Also, socials, don't forget to find us on the usual on X at Joe Rooz, Truth Social, Joe Rooz, Minds, great platform, Minds, get on Minds, at Joe Rooz, Facebook, Joe Rooz Podcast. Instagram is not Joe Rooz. I got banned before I even posted anything. So we opened up a different one as not Joe Rooz. TikTok, Joe.Rooz, and Getter at Joe Rooz. All right, now our usual shout-outs go to our executive producers, Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, and Marisa Lee, and of course our producer, the inestimable Anonymous Angela. Thank you guys so much for all that you do with the show. You guys are a blessing. You do tremendous work, and I really am appreciative of everything that you guys have done for us. Also, if you want to help us out with a donation, you could do a one-time donation, hit the support button on the website. One-time donation, any amount, really appreciate that. Recurring donation, any amount, appreciate that even more. If you want to really help us out, you can sign up as one of our producers. So you can sign up as an associate producer for $17.76 a month. For a producer is $18.36 a month. Executive producers are $25 up a month and more, or more. You could, and as producers, you get the shout out on every show, like you just heard. You get included in all the show notes, emails, anything that we send out. At the executive producer level, you get to book a segment on the show with us live. And talk about whatever's on your mind or whatever you feel is important, or we could talk about whatever's going on today. Just whatever it is, you get 30 minutes on the show live with us. And then, of course, you get some swag and things like that. So check that out. If you can help us out in any way like that, we would really appreciate it. It helps keep everything going here, the lights, everything. All right. If you want to help us out with donations of crypto, you can do that as well. Our crypto wallets are up on our website as well on the support page. And of course, thank you to all of you who've been listening to the audio stream on the modern podcast apps like Podcast Guru, Fountain.fm, Podverse, and so many more for streaming sats to us. Sats are just micropayments of Bitcoin. We really appreciate getting those. So thank you so very much for that. We are incredibly, incredibly thankful. All right, folks, I think that should just about do it for us for tonight. Don't forget, JoeRooz.com. Contact form. Questions, thoughts, cares, concerns, advice, counsel, whatever. All right, folks. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. Make Texas independent again. And keep talking. Good night, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then.
Who cares about the clouds if we're together?
Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you. Till we meet again.
Some trails are happy ones.
Others